Lyra woke up on the night of her wedding. To be precise, she woke up in her new husband's arms, only to hear him murmuring another woman's name in his sleep. Odelia. Odelia. The familiar murmurs instantly jolted Lyra awake. She opened her eyes and looked around at everything that seemed both strange and familiar: the rough military blanket, the simple wooden furniture, the military uniform hanging on the wall. This wasn't the luxurious hospital room she'd died in, but the commander's dormitory in the northwestern military district from the 1970s. Lyra's heart raced. She had been reborn. Back to 20 years ago. On the night she had just married Damon. The memories of her past life came rushing back. Born into a capitalist family, Lyra had been arranged to marry the rising young Commander Damon after her family's downfall. She had believed this was her stroke of luck, loving him with all her heart, bearing his children, managing his household, and even giving up the chance to attend university for him. But Damon's heart had always belonged to someone else: Odelia, a young woman who had gone to the countryside during the Cultural Revolution. That woman would write Damon letters late at night, pretend to miscarry in order to gain his sympathy when Lyra was pregnant, and call him away on various excuses whenever Lyra needed him the most. And Lyra, like a fool, would always choose to understand, to retreat, and to sacrifice. Until the moment of her death in her previous life, Damon had never truly loved her. The tears he shed by her hospital bed were less out of love for his wife and more of a release from the guilt of his own half-lived life. Never again, Lyra swore in her heart. This time, I will not be a lovesick fool. She gently pushed Damon's arm off of her and got up to dress. Since she had been reborn, she was going to live a completely different life. Before dawn, Lyra began to tidy up the house. In her past life, she had always been careful to please Damon, afraid he would be dissatisfied. This time, she couldn't care less about his feelings. She was going to live life her way. By the time Damon woke up, Lyra was in the yard washing vegetables. In the morning light, she looked particularly graceful, but the calmness and composure she displayed were something she had never had before. "You're up early," Damon said hoarsely. His eyes filled with a mix of emotions as he looked at his wife. Last night had been their wedding night, but he didn't feel anything special. From the very beginning, their marriage had been a business arrangement. He needed a wife from a family of equal standing, and Lyra's family needed a promising son-in-law. As for love, that was a luxury. Lyra didn't even look up as she continued washing the cabbage. "I'm making breakfast. When are you heading to the military base?" Damon was taken aback. Yesterday. Lyra had been so shy that she couldn't even look him in the eye. How had she changed so much in one night? "I have an early meeting at 8. He hesitated before asking. "Are you adjusting well? The conditions here are much worse than at your family's home." Lyra finally looked up at him. Her eyes were clear, without a trace of impurity. "Adjusting? Why wouldn't I? I'm not here for comfort." Those words moved Damon. Lyra came from a capitalist family, and though they had fallen from grace, she had been pampered from a young age. He had thought that she wouldn't be able to handle the hardships of army life. But now, he saw that she was adapting far better than he expected. "That's good," he said, nodding, and turned to go inside to freshen up. Lyra watched his back, her heart calm. In her previous life, she would have had her heart race at just one glance from Damon, and her thoughts would have run wild with just one of his words. Now, she only felt indifferent. This man was nothing special. When Damon came out after washing up, breakfast was already on the table: a bowl of millet porridge, pickled vegetables, and steamed buns. Simple and modest, but it smelled delicious. "You made this?" Damon asked, a little surprised. Yesterday, Lyra's mother had expressed concern that her daughter might not know how to cook and had specifically reminded him to take care of her. Lyra ladled out a bowl of porridge and handed it to him. "Try it." Damon took a sip. The porridge was perfectly cooked, with a rich fragrance. He couldn't help but look at Lyra again. This woman seemed so different from what he had imagined. After breakfast, Damon prepared to leave for the base. Just before leaving, he turned and looked at Lyra. "I might be late tonight. Don't be scared at home. If anything comes up, You can go next door to find Wang's wife. Got it. Lyral was already clearing the dishes and didn't look up. Damon hesitated at the door as though he wanted to say something. But in the end, he said nothing and left, watching his figure disappear into the morning mist. Lyral sneered. In her previous life, she would have stood at the door, watching him leave with reluctance and longing. Now, all she wanted to say was, "Goodbye. No need to send me off." After finishing her chores, Lyral took out an English book. She had secretly prepared this for herself last life. She had given up her studies for Damon. But this time, she was going to pick it back up. The college entrance exams were about to be reinstated in 1976. She would be among the first to enter university. If Damon wanted to be with Sue Adelia, then let him. She was going to see a bigger world. She was so focused on her book that she didn't notice someone knocking on the door. "Lyral, are you home?" A soft voice from outside called. Frowning, Lyral put the book down and went to open the door. Standing outside was a girl in her 20s. Dressed plainly in a blue Zongshan suit, with 2 braids in her hair. She looked delicate and pretty. Odelia. Lyral immediately recognized her. This woman had come many times in her previous life, always pretending to be pitiful and saying things like, "I just want to see how Damon is doing. I don't want to ruin your relationship." And in her previous life, Lyral had always been moved by her apparent kindness, even inviting her inside and cooking for her. Now, Lyral only wanted to slap her past self. "Who are you?" Lyral asked, pretending not to know, her face devoid of any smile. Odelia seemed taken aback by Lyral's reaction. After a pause, she said, "I'm Odelia, Damon's friend. I just returned from the countryside and heard he got married, so I came to see him." "Friend?" Lyral sneered in her heart. A friend? No, she was clearly an unforgettably lost first love. "Oh," Lyral nodded. "Damon isn't home. He's at the base." She was about to close the door when Odelia hurriedly stopped it. "Lyral, can I come in and sit? There's something I want to talk to you about." "No." Lyral rejected her outright. "We're not close. And there's nothing to talk about. Besides, I'm busy and don't have time to entertain guests." Odelia's face paled. She clearly hadn't expected Lyral to refuse so directly. "Lyral, have you misunderstood something? Damon and I are really just friends. I don't have any other intentions." Lyral interrupted her words. But one thing was clear to her: the appearance of a married man's first love at his doorstep could not be without ulterior motives. So Odelia's face turned even paler at the accusation. Biting her lip, her eyes filled with tears, she said, "Lyral, how could you think that about me? I really didn't." "Enough. Stop pretending in front of me." Lyral waved her hand impatiently. "If you want to see Damon, go to the army base and find him. Don't come to my house. And don't come back here again. I find it bothersome." With that, Lyral slammed the door shut, leaving Sue Adelia standing in the yard, her face alternately pale and green. Lyral leaned against the door after closing it and let out a long breath. In her past life, she had been too kind, always considering others. And in the end, she made a mess of her own life. This time, she had learned to be smart when it was time to be tough. She would never soften. Sue Adelia stood outside for a while, perhaps feeling too embarrassed to stay any longer. Before she finally left, Lyral watched her retreating figure from the window, her heart shaken. In her previous life, she would have thought she had been too harsh, feeling guilty and regretting her actions. Now, she only felt that what she did was right. Some people just couldn't be given any leeway. Otherwise, they would take advantage of it. She picked up her English book again and continued studying. Her English foundation was quite solid. She had majored in English in college. Although her memories were somewhat blurred after being reborn, the basics remained intact. Time passed quickly, and before long, it was noon. Lyral made a simple lunch and ate quietly by herself. In the afternoon, her neighbor, Wang Ayi, came over to visit. Wang Ayi was the wife of a senior officer at the base, her husband being the chief of staff, someone with a lot of influence in the compound. "Lyral, How are you settling in? If there's anything you don't understand, feel free to ask me. Wang Ay was very warm and immediately started making small talk. It's good. Thank you for asking. Lyra poured her a glass of water. Wang Ay glanced around the room, nodded, and said, "It looks nice. It's much cleaner than when Damon lived here alone." After chatting for a while, Wang Ay suddenly lowered her voice and said, "Lyra, I need to tell you something. But don't take it too hard. This morning, a young woman came to find Damon. She stood outside the army gate for a while and then cried." Lyra sneered inwardly, though her expression remained neutral. "Oh? What young woman?" "Her name is Suadelia. She's quite pretty. But she tries too hard to act. I heard she used to know Damon. She came back to the city today and stopped by to see him." Wang Ay whispered. "I've seen women like her before. They pretend to be just friends. But really, they're just trying to seduce someone. You'd better keep an eye on Damon. Don't let some fox spirit take advantage." Lyra took a sip of tea. "You're overthinking. Wang Ay. I trust Damon's character. And that Suadelia came to my house this morning. But I sent her away." "Really?" Wang Ay's eyes lit up. "What did you say to her?" "I told her we weren't close and there was nothing to talk about. I told her not to come again," Lyra said coolly. Wang Ay slapped her thigh in approval. "Good. That's how you should handle it. I can't stand those wishy-washy people who say, 'We're just friends,' or, 'I don't mean anything by it.' It's all lies. You did the right thing." After chatting for a while longer, Wang Ay left. In the evening, Damon came home. The moment he stepped inside, he could feel that the atmosphere in the house was off. Lyra was sitting at the table reading, not even lifting her head. "I'm home," Damon said cautiously. Lyra replied briefly, her attention still on the book. After finishing his wash, Damon sat across from Lyra. "How was your day at home?" "It was fine." Lyra flipped a page of her book. "By the way, a young woman named Suadelia came to see you. I told her you weren't home. And she left." Damon's hand froze for a moment before he casually replied, "Oh, her? She's an old classmate. She must have come back to the city and decided to stop by." "Classmate?" Lyra scoffed inwardly. In her past life, Damon had said the same thing. And what happened then? "Really?" Lyra finally looked up at him. "Well, you can go see her tomorrow and catch up. There's no need to make her come all the way here." Her calm words made Damon feel something was off. If it were any other woman, wouldn't she be jealous or dig deeper if she found out her husband had a female classmate visit? Why was Lyra reacting so indifferently? "Forget it. There's nothing to catch up on," Damon said casually. "By the way, what's for dinner?" "It's warming in the pot." Lyra pointed toward the kitchen and continued reading. Damon shook his head in amusement, then went to serve himself dinner. He had always imagined that married life would be filled with a caring wife who would prepare a warm meal and ask about his day. But instead, Lyra was even more indifferent than him. As if she didn't care whether he ate or not. During dinner, both of them were quiet. Damon secretly observed Lyra and noticed how different she was from yesterday. Yesterday, she would sneak glances at him and blush at the slightest eye contact. Today, she seemed completely absorbed in her book, as if he didn't exist. "What book are you reading?" Damon finally couldn't help but ask. "English," Lyra replied without looking up. "You know English?" Damon asked. Surprised. "A little." Lyra turned another page, then tried to refocus on her book. Damon nodded, not saying anything more, but a question lingered in his mind. What did Lyra need to learn English for? In this day and age, English wasn't really that useful. After dinner, Lyra cleared the table while Damon sat nearby reading the newspaper. They each went about their business in silence, the atmosphere a little awkward. That night, when they went to bed, Damon tried to wrap his arm around Lyra, but was gently pushed away. "I'm a bit tired. I want to rest early." Lyra's voice was calm as she turned her back to him. Damon's hand froze in Madra, and eventually, heading full celled la obsession. He withdrew it. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, his emotions mixed. Lyryl's change was hard to adjust to. He couldn't tell whether he felt disappointed or relieved. Meanwhile, Lyryl, though facing away from him, wasn't asleep. She heard Damon turning in bed and curled her lips into a cold smile. In her previous life, she had always been anxious, terrified that Damon would be dissatisfied. What did that get her? Him calling another woman's name in his sleep, his indifference to her, and his tenderness towards Adelia. This time, she wouldn't make the same mistake. Since this marriage never had love from the start, she would maintain her distance. She had her goals. And Damon had his first love. They could each go their own way, without interfering with the other. The next morning, Damon went to the army base as usual. Lyryl saw him to the door but stayed inside, not following him to the compound gate like the other military wives. "I'm leaving." Damon turned back to look at her. Be careful on the road." Lyryl's concern sounded polite, almost perfunctory. After Damon left, Lyryl continued with her study plan. She was determined to not only learn English but also to review her math, literature, physics, and chemistry, aiming for a high score when the college entrance exams were reinstated. Around 10 in the morning, the doorbell rang again. Lyryl thought it might be Wang's wife. But when she opened the door, it was Adelia once more. "Why are you here again?" Lyryl frowned. "Didn't I make myself clear yesterday?" Adelia bit her lip, tears welling in her eyes. "Lyryl, I know you misunderstood me. But I really mean no harm. I just want to clarify things so it doesn't affect your marriage." "Clarify what?" Lyryl leaned against the doorframe, looking at her with a slightly amused expression. Adelia took a deep breath. "Damon and I were together once. But that's all in the past. Now that he's married you, I won't interfere. I came back to put everything behind me." Lyryl almost laughed at this. She'd heard this same script countless times in her past life. Adelia always said she wanted to let go of the past. But what happened? She had clung to Damon for 2 decades. "Since you want to move on, why are you here?" Lyryl's voice turned cold. "Why not just disappear?" Adelia paused, then responded. "I want your forgiveness, so I can feel at ease. And I also want to tell you that Damon is a good man. And you should cherish him. You don't need to tell me how to treat my husband." Lyryl spoke impatiently. "Adelia, I'll say this one last time, stay away from us. Your so-called clarification only makes me more aware of your past with Damon. If you hadn't come, I wouldn't even know about it." Adelia's face turned pale. She clearly hadn't expected Lyryl to be so blunt. In her plan, Lyryl should have been moved by her honesty and then expressed understanding and forgiveness. That way, Adelia could gain Lyryl's goodwill and maintain contact with Damon without raising suspicion. Instead, Lyryl's reaction was completely unexpected. "Lyryl, how could you think that of me? I truly..." "Enough. Stop acting." Lyryl interrupted her. "If you really want to sever ties with the past, you should disappear from Damon's life completely. Not show up in front of me to make your presence known. What you're doing now is telling me you're still thinking about my husband. So, let me make it clear, it's not going to happen." Tears finally streamed down Adelia's face. "Lyryl, you've misunderstood me. I really didn't. You know whether you did or not." Lyryl sneered. "And even if you didn't, I still don't welcome you. The reason is simple: I don't want my husband to maintain any contact with his ex-girlfriend. That's my bottom line." With that, Lyryl slammed the door, not bothering with any more pleasantries. Adelia stood outside, crying for a long while. Maybe realizing this wasn't getting her anywhere, she eventually left. Lyryl watched her retreat through the window, her heart utterly unmoved. In her past life, she had been far too considerate of others, always thinking about their feelings, only to end up in a place where no one respected her. This time, she had learned to protect herself. When the situation called for firmness, she wouldn't hesitate to be tough. At noon, Damon suddenly returned. As soon as he entered, he found Lyryl busy in the kitchen, which caught him off guard. "How come you're back?" Lyryl glanced over her shoulder at him. "The morning training finished early, so I came back for lunch." Damon hung his military uniform on the wall. "What are you making?" "Tomato and egg noodles." Lyra replied, continuing her task. Do you want some? Sure. Damon sat down at the table, watching her quietly. She was wearing a light blue shirt and had tied her hair back in a simple ponytail. She looked fresh and clean, the bustle in the kitchen giving her a grounded, everyday charm. A stark contrast to her usual aloof demeanor. Before long, the hot tomato and egg noodles were ready. Lyra served 2 large bowls, one for Damon, the other for herself. How does it taste? She asked. Damon took a bite and nodded. It's really good. He was telling the truth. The noodles were perfectly chewy. The broth tangy and sweet. The eggs tender. It was far better than anything the cafeteria served. As they ate, Damon casually asked, how is it here today? Did anyone come by? Lyra gave him a sidelong glance. Odelia came again. Damon froze for a moment, his chopsticks pausing Mydra. What did she want? She wanted to clarify your relationship, Lyra said inferiorly. She was worried I might misunderstand. I told her not to come back again. Damon fell silent for a moment, then said, that's just how she is. She's a bit overly thoughtful and tends to overthink things. Don't take it to heart. Lyra scoffed. Overly thoughtful? Is that a compliment or a criticism of Odelia for not being understanding enough? I'm not taking it to heart. Lyra set her chopsticks down. But Damon, I need to make something clear. I don't care what your relationship with her was in the past. But now you're my husband. I want you to keep your distance from your ex. That's my bottom line. And it's the minimum respect for our marriage. Damon blinked, taken aback by how direct Lyra was being. Lyra, you're overthinking. Odelia and I don't want to know what you two were to each other. Lyra cut him off. I just want you to do what I said. Can you do that? Damon looked into Lyra's firm eyes, feeling conflicted. He had expected her to behave like most wives, getting jealous, crying, throwing a tantrum, and making him comfort her. But her reaction was so rational, so direct, that he didn't know how to respond. Yes. Damon finally nodded. Good. Lyra stood up to clear the dishes. Do you have to go back to the base? Yeah, Oilie's too. I have more training this afternoon. Damon stood up to put his uniform back on. Just as he was about to leave, he glanced back at Lyra, as if wanting to say something. But in the end, he didn't say a word. Lyra walked him to the door, still standing inside. Be careful on the road. After Damon left, Lyra picked up her book again. But her mind wasn't on it. She was still thinking about their conversation. In her past life, she had never dared to make any demands of Damon, silently enduring his special treatment for Odelia. This time, she had laid it all out. And although she didn't know how it would turn out, at least she had made herself clear. Around 3 in the afternoon, Wang's wife came by again. As soon as she stepped inside, she whispered, Lyra, I heard Odelia came by again today? Yes, had an self-self session. She did. Lyra poured her a glass of water. What did she say? Wang Ai asked curiously. Lyra briefly recounted the conversation from the morning. Wang Ai, upon hearing it, slapped her thigh and said, I knew she wasn't a good woman. All that talk about clearing up misunderstandings, it was clearly a provocation. Lyra, you did the right thing. That's how you should deal with people like her. Having seen and heard much, Wang Ai continued. So, how should you handle this situation? Lyra, eager for advice, asked. What's the best way to deal with her? Wang Ai thought for a moment before replying. The best approach is to make her give up. Women like that are always looking for an easy target. The more you show weakness, the more they'll take advantage. But if you stand your ground, they'll think twice before crossing the line. Also, keep an eye on Damon. Men are like that, they might not have any ill intentions, but they can't resist when women come knocking. Especially first loves. They always stir up old memories. Lyra nodded. I understand. Wang Ai, after gossiping for a bit longer, finally left. In the evening, Damon returned home looking somewhat fatigued. He walked in, sat down in a chair, and didn't move. What's wrong? Are you very tired? Lyra asked. setting her book aside. The training was pretty intense today. Damon rubbed his temples. Lyral gave him a glance before getting out and bringing him a glass of warm water. Here. Drink some water. Damon took the glass, feeling the comforting warmth on his palms. He looked up at Lyral and noticed she was watching him closely, observing his condition. You don't look too well. Are you feeling unwell? Lyral furrowed her brow. It's nothing. Just a slight headache. Damon took a sip of water. Lyral thought for a moment, then moved behind him. Let me massage your temples. Damon froze for a moment. But then he felt Lyral's fingers gently massaging his temples. Her hands were soft and warm, applying just the right pressure to make him feel relaxed. Does that feel good? Lyral asked. It feels great. Damon closed his eyes, enjoying this rare moment of tenderness. Lyral continued the massage for more than 10 minutes, only stopping once his complexion had improved. Feeling better? She asked. Much better. Thank you. Damon turned to look at her. His eyes filled with mixed emotions. Lyral nodded and turned to the kitchen to prepare dinner. Damon stared at her retreating figure, a strange feeling rising within him. Lyral's care seemed so natural, not at all like something she was pretending to do, which surprised him. At dinner, the atmosphere between them was more harmonious than usual. Damon initiated a conversation about work, and Lyral responded occasionally. By the way, I heard that the college entrance exams might be reinstated next year, Damon casually said. Lyral paused, her chopsticks freezing Mydra. Really? They haven't made an official announcement yet, but that's the rumor. Damon glanced at her. Do you want to take the exams? I'm thinking about it. Lyral replied honestly. I think it's a good idea to learn as much as possible while I'm still young. Damon nodded. That's a good idea. But preparing for the exams is tough. Are you sure you can stick with it? I'll give it a try. Lyral's tone was calm, but there was a determined spark in her eyes. Damon looked into her eyes and suddenly realized that this woman was very different from what he had imagined. She wasn't the traditional wife who only cared about taking care of the household. She had her own goals and ambitions. This discovery caught him off guard, and made him somewhat appreciative. The next morning, when Damon was leaving for the army base, he ran into Suodelia at the gate of the compound. Damon Ge. Suodelia looked at him with teary eyes, her expression pitiful. Damon stopped in his tracks, frowning. Odelia, what are you doing here? I just wanted to see you. There's something I need to say. Suodelia bit her lip. But your wife won't let me in. So I had no choice but to wait for you here. Damon glanced back at his house, then said to Suodelia, if you have something to say, you can say it here. A flash of disappointment crossed Suodelia's eyes, but she still spoke. Damon Ge. I know you're married, and I shouldn't be bothering you. But I'm about to leave the city, and I wanted to see you one last time before I go. You're leaving? Damon was taken aback. Yes, had in Sosobland session. I found a job in the provincial capital. I'll be moving next month. Suodelia lowered her head. I just wanted to say goodbye. And put the past behind me. Damon was silent for a moment. He and Suodelia had shared a deep bond once, and it had been one of the most beautiful memories of his youth. Though they had parted ways for various reasons, he had always held on to the memories of that time. Odelia. I know, we know. It's impossible for us. Suodelia interrupted him, tears falling. I'm not hoping for anything anymore. I just wanted to tell you that I never forgot you all these years. Even though we can't be together, you will always be the most special person in my heart. With that, she turned to leave. But Damon called out to her. Odelia. Wait a moment. Damon stepped forward a few paces. You. Take care. Suodelia looked back at him, offering a sad smile. You too. Damon Ge. I hope you find happiness. With that, she walked away, her figure seeming especially lonely. Damon stood there for a long time, watching her. A tangle of emotions filled his heart. Their relationship had indeed passed, but the beautiful memories weren't something that could be easily forgotten. At lunch, Damon was a little distracted. Lyral noticed his unusual mood but didn't press him for answers. Are you working overtime this afternoon? Lyral casually asked while cleaning up the dishes. Yeah. I might be home a little late, Damon answered absentmindedly. Lyral nodded, not pressing him further. In the afternoon, Damon didn't go to work. Instead, he went to a coffee shop in the city where Sue Odelia was already waiting for him. You came after all. Sue Odelia's eyes bright, and when she saw him, I just wanted to say a proper goodbye. Damon sat down across from her. They talked for a long time, reminiscing about the good old days and updating each other on their current lives. Sue Odelia told him that even during the difficult years in the countryside, her thoughts of him had been the motivation that kept her going. If only we hadn't broken up back then, Sue Odelia said softly, her eyes full of regret. Damon remained silent for a long time before finally responding. The past is in the past. We have new lives now. You need to start fresh too. I understand. Sue Odelia smiled weakly. I'll try to forget the past. But, Damon G.E., if there's ever a time when you're not happy, will you still think of me? Her words were indirect. But Damon understood them. He looked into Sue Odelia's tear-filled eyes. And an inexplicable impulse surged within him. Odelia. At that moment, the door of the CAF was pushed open, and Lyral walked in. She immediately spotted Damon and Odelia sitting in the corner, facing each other, their atmosphere clearly intimate. The moment Damon saw Lyral, his expression changed. He quickly stood up. Lyral. What are you doing here? Lyral walked over calmly. I just came to buy something. Didn't expect to run into you too. Odelia also stood up, her face flustered. Lyral. Damon and I were just. I overheard. Lyral interrupted. Then turned to Damon. Didn't you say you had overtime? Damon was left speechless, a hint of embarrassment flashing across his face. Lyral sneered. Looks like I've been overthinking. You two go ahead. I'll leave first. With that, she turned and left, not giving Damon a chance to explain. Damon wanted to chase after her, but Odelia stopped him. Damon. Just let her go. She won't listen to your explanation. But. Damon hesitated. Since she doesn't trust you this much, it means your relationship isn't deep to begin with. Odelia glanced at the direction Lyral left, a slight smugness in her eyes. Couples who truly love each other trust one another. Damon didn't respond, feeling a mess of emotions inside. When Lyral returned home, she acted as if nothing had happened. She went about her usual tasks, completely unaffected. That evening, when Damon came back, he found the house unusually quiet. Lyral was sitting at the table, reading, her head never once lifting. Lyral. Damon wanted to explain. The food's in the pot. Help yourself. Lyral's voice remained calm. Never looking up, Damon opened his mouth but said nothing. He silently went into the kitchen to serve himself some food. During dinner, the atmosphere was tense and quiet. Damon tried to speak a few times, but each time he saw Lyral's eerily calm expression, he swallowed his words back down. That night, when it was time for bed, Lyral placed a pillow in the middle of the bed, drawing a clear boundary between them. Lyral, can we talk? Damon couldn't help but say. Talk about what? Lyral's voice was calm as she turned her back to him. You said you'd keep your distance from your ex. Yet you turned around and went to meet her. You said you had overtime. But instead, you went on a date with her. Damon. What's there left to talk about? Damon was left speechless. He knew he had broken his promise. And that was undeniable. I just wanted to say goodbye to her. He began. Does saying goodbye require lying? Does it need to be done in secret? Lyral laughed bitterly. Damon. What do you think I am? A 3-year-old child? Damon fell silent. Lyral was right. His actions were inappropriate. I'm sorry, he murmured. Save your apology. Lyral's voice remained eerily calm. We were always in a political marriage with no emotional foundation. If you're still nostalgic for the past, that's your business. But remember one thing, Lyral, am not someone to be easily bullied. Her words were cold, sending a chill down Damon's spine. What are you trying to say? What I'm saying is that this better not happen again. Lyral finally turned to look at him. Her gaze as cold as ice. Otherwise, I won't hesitate to let the entire military district know how the wife of a colonel was humiliated. Damon froze. He hadn't expected Lyral to speak like this, let alone have the audacity to make such a threat. But he had to admit that Lyral was right. If this got out, it wouldn't just be her losing face, it would be him and the entire Damon family as well. I promise it won't happen again, Damon said solemnly. I hope so. Lyral turned back to face the other way. Go to sleep. We have an early start tomorrow. Damon lay in bed, his mind a whirl of conflicting thoughts. He was beginning to realize that Lyral wasn't the docile woman he had imagined. She had her pride and boundaries. And once they were crossed, the consequences would be severe. The next morning, when Damon woke up, Lyral was already gone. He got dressed and came out, only to see Lyral in the yard, washing vegetables. Her expression as usual. Has breakfast been made? Damon asked cautiously. It's ready. Help yourself. Lyral didn't even look up. Damon felt a pang of disappointment. Although Lyral had always seemed distant, at least she used to ask if he wanted breakfast. Now, she didn't even offer him that small courtesy. During breakfast, the two of them remained silent. Damon tried several times to initiate a conversation, but every time he saw Lyral's distant, unapproachable expression, Henning fulfilled la expression. He swallowed his words again. Before he left, Damon paused at the door. I'll be back on time tonight. Lyral merely responded with a neutral, not even glancing at him. After Damon left, Lyral returned to her steady schedule. She had made up her mind no matter what Damon did, she would live her own life well. Around 10 in the morning, Wang's wife came over again. Lyral, you look a bit pale. Did you not rest well? Wang's wife asked with concern. Maybe I stayed up too late treating last night. Lyral casually replied. Wang's wife sat for a while, then suddenly lowered her voice. Lyral, I heard that someone saw Damon and that Odelia meeting at a CAF in the city yesterday afternoon. Is that true? Lyral's hand froze major as she held her teacup, but she quickly shrugged it off. I don't know. I haven't asked him. You should be careful. Wang's wife spoke earnestly. Men are like that. They say it's nothing, but they can't really let go, especially their first love. It's the hardest to resist the temptation to reignite those feelings. I understand. Lyral nodded. Wang's wife said a few more words of advice before leaving. Lyral continued to read, but her mind wandered. Though she had already known that Damon hadn't let go of Odelia, seeing them together still left her feeling uneasy. It wasn't because of love, but because of the anger from being betrayed and the humiliation of being wronged. At noon, Damon came back on time. He tried talking to Lyral, but she responded coldly to every attempt. I'm not working this afternoon. Damon tried to ease the tension. Do as you wish. Lyral continued eating, not sparing him a second glance. That afternoon, Damon really didn't go out. Instead, he stayed home reading the newspaper. Lyral continued studying as usual, and the two of them went about their business, occasionally crossing glances that quickly darted away. In the evening, someone knocked at the door. Lyral went to open it and found Odelia standing there. What are you doing here again? Lyral frowned. Odelia's eyes were red, clearly having been crying. Lyral, I came to apologize. What happened yesterday was my fault. I shouldn't have arranged to meet Damon. Good, let out. You understand. Lyral's voice was cold. I'm leaving now. I won't bother you again. Odelia bit her lip, but added, but I hope you'll treat Damon well. He's a good man, and he deserves to be loved. Lyral almost laughed out loud. What was Odelia doing? Trying to play the saint after causing trouble? You don't need to teach me how to treat my husband, Lyral said bluntly. And don't show up in front of me again. You're an eyesore. So Odelia's face turned pale upon hearing this. But she insisted. Lyral, I know you hate me, but please, don't take it out on Damon. He only saw me yesterday because he wanted closure. Enough. Lyral's patience finally ran out. So Odelia, if you're leaving, then leave quickly. Stop playing games here. And remember this, Damon, and I don't need you to interfere. With that, she slammed the door shut. So Odelia stood outside for a while. But eventually, she left. Lyra returned to the house, finding Damon standing by the window, clearly having overheard the conversation. What did she want? Damon asked. She came to apologize, Lyra said coolly. She said she's leaving and won't bother us again. Damon fell silent for a moment. Lyra. About yesterday. It's over. Lyra interrupted him. I don't want to hear your explanation. Are you still angry? I'm not angry. Lyra glanced at him briefly. I just don't think there's any reason to expect anything more from this marriage. Her words landed heavily, making Damon's heart sink. Lyra. What do you mean by that? It means nothing. Lyra resumed reading her book. Since it's a political marriage, let's continue living as if it's a political marriage. You have your life, and I have mine. We can keep to our own lanes. Damon felt uncomfortable. We are married. A marriage is just a label. Lyra didn't look up. What matters is how we treat each other. Since you chose to betray me, don't expect me to treat you like I did before. I didn't betray you, Damon said, his voice rising. I only saw Odelia to say goodbye. Is that so? Lyra finally lifted her head, her gaze sharp. Then why sneak around? Damon, if it really was just a farewell, you could have told me openly. But you didn't. What does that mean? Damon was left speechless. Lyra's words were hard to argue with if he was truly innocent. While I just didn't want you to overthink it. Damon offered a weak explanation. Overthink? Lyra sneered. Damon, do you take me for a fool? You met with your ex-girlfriend alone. And you think I shouldn't overthink that? Damon was completely taken aback. He realized his actions had been wrong. And no matter what his motives were, lying was lying. And betrayal was betrayal. I'm sorry, he murmured. Save your apology, Lyra said, turning back to her book. Let's just live our lives separately from now on. Damon stood frozen, his emotions in turmoil. He had expected Lyra to cry, to demand promises, or to be angry. But her response, so calm, so rational, made him feel more uneasy than any outburst could have. Because it meant Lyra had completely given up on him and no longer harbored any illusions about their marriage. At dinner, the atmosphere between them grew even more strained. Lyra continued to act as usual, while Damon fidgeted uneasily. Lyra, do we really have to keep going like this? Damon couldn't hold it in anymore. Like what? Lyra asked, not looking up. This coldness, Damon said, struggling to find the right words. We're married. We should. Should what? Lyra put down her chopsticks and looked at him. Should I pretend nothing happened and continue being sweet and caring towards you? Or should I pretend to believe your lies and keep playing the role of a naive, innocent wife? Damon was at a loss for words. Lyra, let's be clear, she said, her voice calm. I can continue being your wife, fulfilling my duties. But that's all. Don't expect me to love you, care for you, or sacrifice everything for you. You don't deserve it. Her words were harsh. But Damon couldn't refute them. He knew it was his fault he had betrayed her first. The next few days were filled with a heavy, oppressive silence at home. Lyra continued to cook, wash clothes, and take care of the household. But her attitude toward Damon was as cold as ice. Damon tried to ease the tension, but Lyra's responses were always distant. She didn't argue or throw tantrums. She simply maintained a polite, distant demeanor, which made Damon feel worse than any punishment. That night, Damon couldn't stand it anymore. Lyra, can we talk? He asked as she was reading. I don't think there's anything to talk about, Lyra replied, not looking up. But I think there is. Damon sat down across from her. We can't just keep going like this. Why not? Lyra finally looked at him. I think things are fine as they are. We mind our own business. And we don't bother each other. But we're married, Damon said, his voice rising with frustration. Marriage is supposed to have feelings. Feelings? Lyra sneered. Damon, Are you talking about feelings? Do you have any feelings for me? Damon opened his mouth but couldn't find the words. Did he have feelings for Lyral? If he said no, he knew he had come to respect her over these past days. If he said yes, he was still holding on to his memories of Sue Odelia. You can't even say it. Lyral observed his expression. Her judgment clear. If you don't have feelings for me, why should I be expected to have feelings for you? Damon tried to defend himself, but couldn't think of anything to say. Lyral. We're both adults. Let's stop deceiving ourselves. Lyral's voice was steady. From the beginning, there was no love in this marriage. We both got what we needed. You got a wife of equal status. And I got a husband with prospects. As for feelings, that's a luxury. Her words were blunt, but also brutal. Damon felt a sharp pang in his heart, but couldn't argue with the truth. So what do you want? Damon finally asked. Let's keep things as they are, Lyral said, picking up her book again. You continue being the regiment commander. And I'll continue being the regiment commander's wife. We each do our part. And let time pass in peace. Damon fell silent for a long while before speaking. What if I say I want a real wife? Then go find a woman who loves you, Lyral said without looking up. But it's not going to be me. Her words were as cold as ice. And Damon felt a chill deep in his heart. Lyral. Why are you being so heartless? Heartless? Lyral finally lifted her head, her eyes gleaming with sarcasm. Damon. Do you think I'm heartless? Or are you the one who is? What were you thinking when you went to meet your ex behind your wife's back? What were you thinking when you lied to your wife? What were you thinking when you humiliated me in front of everyone? And now, you call me heartless? Damon. You really have some nerve. Damon was left speechless. Completely humiliated. Lyral was right, he had wronged her first. And now, what right did he have to demand her kindness? I'm sorry. He apologized again. If apologies worked, we wouldn't need police. Lyral replied coldly. Damon. Some things, once done, can never be undone. Saying sorry won't make everything right. So what do you want me to do? Damon asked, growing desperate. Tell me, and I'll do anything. Lyral glanced at him and suddenly smiled a cold, mocking smile. I don't need you to do anything. All I want is for you to remember one thing. There's no such thing as a magic fix in this world. With that, she closed her book and stood up, ready for bed. Lyral. Damon called after her. Is there something else? Lyral turned to look at him. Damon met her cold gaze and felt a wave of despair wash over him. It suddenly hit him Lyral had truly given up on him. No, nothing, he muttered weakly. Lyral nodded and turned, disappearing into the bedroom. Damon sat alone in the living room, his thoughts a mess. He started to regret his choices. Regretted not appreciating Lyral's goodness. And regretted how their marriage had ended up. But, as Lyral had said, there was no turning back. The past could not be undone. The next morning, when Damon woke up, Lyral was already up. She was busy in the kitchen, looking the same as always. Breakfast is ready. Help yourself, Lyral said. Still the same as ever. Damon silently went to the kitchen to serve himself, feeling a deep sense of loss. At breakfast, he cautiously said, Lyral, I want to take a few days off, to spend some time with you. How about we go out for a while? No need. Lyral didn't look up. I have things to do. What things? Studying. Lyral answered simply. Damon paused, then added, well, when you're tired of studying, we can go relax for a bit? No need. Lyral's refusal was firm. Damon wasn't giving up yet. Is there anything you want? I'll buy it for you. No. Lyral finally looked at him, her gaze direct. Damon. You don't need to do this. I told you. We'll go our separate ways. You don't have to try so hard to be nice to me. It won't change how I feel about you. Her words were direct and left Damon feeling utterly defeated. I understand, he said softly, no longer trying to salvage anything. Lyral glanced at him. Her heart changed. In her past life, she had been moved by every little kindness from this man. But now, it only felt laughable. After breakfast, Damon went to the army. Lyral continued with her study plan. Everything going on as usual. At noon, Wang's wife came over again. As soon as she entered, she noticed Lyral's tired appearance. Lyral, you look exhausted these past few days. Is something wrong? Wang's wife asked with concern. It's nothing. Just a bit tired from studying. Lyral replied casually. Wang's wife sat down and lowered her voice. I heard that Odelia has left. Is that true? I don't know. Lyral answered truthfully. She didn't care about where Odelia had gone. Good riddance. Wang's wife sighed with relief. Women like her are nothing but trouble. It's better she's gone. If she had stayed, something bad would have happened. Lyral nodded, not saying much more. Wang's wife continued chatting for a while before leaving. Lyral resumed her reading, her mood calm as ever. In the afternoon, a messenger from the army delivered a telegram. Lyral took it and saw that it was addressed to Damon. The message was brief: Odelia is seriously ill and hospitalized. Please come quickly. Lyral glanced at the telegram, then smiled coldly. Odelia's tactic was always foolproof. Lyral had seen it many times in her past life. Each time, it always managed to pull Damon away. She placed the telegram on the table and went back to her reading, as though nothing had happened. In the evening, Damon returned home. The moment he walked in, he saw the telegram on the table, and his face immediately changed. When was this delivered? He asked, picking up the telegram. Around 3 p.m. Lyral replied, still not looking up. Damon read the telegram, his brows furrowing. Odelia is sick. Really sick. Oh. Lyral continued reading, showing no concern. Damon was puzzled. Aren't you worried? Why should I be worried? Lyral finally lifted her head to look at him. She's sick, so what does that have to do with me? Damon was caught off guard. Then said, she's my friend. She's your friend, not mine. Lyral cut him off. If you want to worry, then go worry. Don't involve me. Damon looked at Lyral's cold expression, his heart filled with confusion. I want to go see her, he said cautiously. Do as you wish. Lyral lowered her head again. I couldn't care less. Damon hesitated for a moment. Then, will you be angry? Lyral scoffed. Why would I be angry? Who you go to see is your choice. It has nothing to do with me. Her words were cold, but Damon could hear the deeper meaning in them. Lyral truly didn't care anymore. She didn't care what he did or who he saw. Not even about their marriage. Just go if you're going. Don't drag it out here. Lyral said impatiently. I still have to study. And I don't have time to deal with your indecision. Damon looked at her profile, an inexplicable sense of loss rising in his heart. He suddenly realized that losing Lyral's concern was far more terrifying than losing anything else. But Odelia was seriously ill and in the hospital, so he couldn't just ignore it. Then I'll go. Damon finally made his decision. Lyral responded without lifting her head. Damon quickly changed into casual clothes and rushed out the door. Lyral listened to his retreating footsteps, a bitter smile curling at the corner of her lips. Men were all the same. No matter how sweet their words, when it came to the crucial moment, they would always choose their first love. But this time, she wouldn't repeat the mistakes of her past life. She wouldn't allow herself to be upset over a man who didn't love her. By the time Damon reached the hospital in the provincial capital, it was already late at night. He found Odelia in the hospital room, and her condition was indeed serious. Her face was pale, and she looked weak, barely holding on. Damon, you're here, Odelia said, her eyes lighting up for a moment before dimming again. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have had someone send you the telegram. But I was really scared. Don't speak. Rest well. Damon sat down by her bedside. What did the doctor say? They said it's acute pneumonia, and I need to be hospitalized, Odelia said weakly. I'm all alone here, and I don't know anyone. Except for you, Heather, for you. I don't know who else I can turn to. Seeing her fragile, pitiful appearance, Damon felt a surge of compassion. Rest assured, if you need anything, just tell me. Thank you. Damon, So Adelia's eyes filled with tears. I know I shouldn't bother you. Especially now that you have a family and a wife. But I'm really scared. Scared that I'll die here. Stop talking nonsense. You'll get better. Damon reassured her. So Adelia grasped his hand. Damon. If something really happens to me. Will you miss me? Damon looked into her tear-filled eyes. His heart softening. Don't think about bad things. You're going to be fine. I know you're in a difficult position. And I don't want to trouble you. So Adelia spoke softly. But aside from you, I really have no one to rely on. Damon's heart softened completely. No matter what. So Adelia had once been the woman he loved. Now, she was seriously ill and helpless in bed. He couldn't just turn a blind eye. Rest easy. Don't think about anything else. Damon held her hand. I'll take care of you. So Adelia's eyes glinted with a moment of satisfaction. But she quickly hid it. Thank you, Damon. With you by my side, I'm not afraid. Damon stayed with Sue Adelia at the hospital throughout the night. He didn't return to the army until the next morning. His mind filled with thoughts of Sue Adelia's sickly condition. His heart heavy with sympathy and guilt. When he arrived home, Lyral was in the kitchen making breakfast. She glanced at him but only said softly, "You're back." Damon. Weary. Replied. Lyral. Adelia's really sick. I don't want to hear it. Lyral interrupted. Her voice cold. Don't tell me about your business. Damon froze for a moment. Wanting to explain. But seeing the cold indifference on her face, he remained silent. At breakfast, both of them were quiet. Damon tried to speak a few times but was silenced by Lyral's chill. I might be a bit late coming back today, Damon said as he prepared to leave. Do as you like, Lyral said. Not even looking up. Damon glanced at her. A complex mixture of emotions swelling in his chest. He found himself caring more and more about Lyral's reactions. Hoping for her concern and understanding. But Lyral's indifference was like a wall, completely separating them. In the next few days, Damon shuttled between the hospital and the army. So Adelia's condition fluctuated, requiring constant care. Lyral, however, remained utterly indifferent. She went about her daily routines as if Damon's whereabouts were of no concern to her. That evening, Damon returned home late again. He opened the door to find the living room dark. Lyral had already gone to bed. He moved quietly to the bathroom to wash up, then carefully climbed into bed. Lyral was lying with her back to him. Breathing evenly, she seemed to be deep asleep. Damon lay there, watching her back. A deep sense of loss filling him. They were married, but they interacted like strangers. This kind of life left him feeling empty and meaningless. Lyral, are you awake? He asked softly. Lyral didn't respond, remaining in the same position. Damon sighed and closed his eyes, trying to sleep. But his mind kept racing. Images of both Sue Adelia and Lyral occupying his thoughts, keeping him awake. The next morning, when Damon woke up, Lyral had already gotten up. She was in the kitchen, going about her tasks as usual. Breakfast is ready. Serve yourself, she said. As always. Damon quietly went to the kitchen and served himself, his heart heavy. At the table, he suddenly spoke up. Lyral. Can we what? Lyral lifted her head to look at him. Damon looked into her cold eyes. The words he had wanted to say dying on his lips. Nothing. He shook his head. Lyral glanced at him but didn't ask any further questions. She continued eating. Just then, a rapid knocking came from the door. Lyral went to open it and found a communications officer from the army. Mrs. Regiment Commander. Here's an urgent telegram for the regiment commander. The officer saluted. Lyral took the telegram. And the officer left. She glanced at the contents. Then curled her lips into a cold smile. The telegram read, Adelia is critically ill. Please come at once. Is it that Sue Adelia again? Lyral handed the telegram to Damon. Damon's face changed drastically as he read the telegram. She's in critical condition. He immediately stood up to leave. But Lyral called out to him. Damon. What is it? Damon turned to look at her. I just have one question for you. Lyral's gaze was calm. If one day I were critically ill, would you be in a hurry like this? Damon was stunned. He stared into Lyral's clear but indifferent eyes, unsure of how to answer. Answer me. Lyral insisted. Wanting an answer. Damon opened his mouth, but found that he couldn't speak. Deep down, he knew that if Lyral were really on her deathbed, he wouldn't feel the urgency he was feeling now. This realization shocked him, leaving him filled with guilt. I would, he said weakly. Would you? Lyral sneered. Damon. You can't even deceive yourself. How do you expect to deceive me? Damon was left speechless. Go ahead. Lyral waved him off. Go take care of your first love. Don't let her wait too long. Damon looked at Lyral's expression, a wave of discomfort washing over him. He wanted to say something, but Lyral had already turned and walked into the kitchen. In the end, he chose to leave, heading to the hospital to see Odelia. Lyral listened to his retreating footsteps, her heart as calm as ever. In her past life, she would have cried, thrown a tantrum, and felt wronged. Now, she only felt that this was better. At least she wouldn't have to keep deceiving herself anymore. By the time Damon arrived at the hospital, Odelia was in the emergency room. The doctor said her condition was critical, and she could be in danger at any moment. Damon waited outside the emergency room all night, anxiety gnawing at him. He prayed for Odelia's safety, but also felt a deep sense of guilt. If something were to happen to her, he would never forgive himself. At dawn, the doctor finally came out. The patient is out of danger but still needs to be observed, the doctor said, removing his mask. Damon sighed in relief, the heavy weight on his chest finally lifting. Soon, let out a low sigh. Odelia was wheeled out of the emergency room. Her face was pale, but she had regained consciousness. Damon Ge. She weakly called out. I'm here. Damon took her hand. It's good you're fine. Tears filled Odelia's eyes. I thought I would never see you again. Don't say that. You'll get better. Damon reassured her. After she was settled back in her room, Damon stayed by her side, feeding her water, giving her medicine, and talking to her, never leaving her side. Damon Ge. Thank you. Odelia looked at his tired face, feeling deeply touched. If it weren't for you, I really don't know what I would have done. Don't say that. Damon gently stroked her forehead. Just rest. Don't think about anything else. Odelia closed her eyes, but the corner of her mouth curled up in a barely perceptible smile. Damon stayed with Odelia at the hospital for 3 days until her condition was fully stable before returning home. When he opened the door, he found the house unusually quiet. Lyral was sitting at the table reading, showing no reaction to his return. I'm back, Damon said tentatively. Lyral responded without looking up. Damon glanced at the table and saw no meal prepared for him. Did you eat? He asked. I already ate. Lyral turned a page in her book. There are leftovers in the kitchen. Heat them up yourself. Damon felt a pang of disappointment but silently went to the kitchen to heat the food. At dinner, he cautiously said, Odelia's condition has stabilized. She should be able to leave the hospital soon. Lyral made no response, as if she hadn't heard him. Lyral. Damon tried to start a conversation. I'm going to rest. Lyral closed her book and stood up to go to the bedroom. Wait. Damon called after her. Can we talk? There's nothing to talk about. Lyral turned back to glance at him. You chose your first love. And I chose my life. It's better this way, don't you think? But we're married. So what? Lyral sneered. Damon. Do you really think we're still like a married couple? Damon was rendered speechless. Indeed, their current dynamic felt more like roommates. Or even less than that. So, what do you want to do? Damon asked. I've already said it. The status quo works just fine. Lyral said inferently. You have someone to care about. And I have my studies. We don't cross paths. With that, she turned and went into the bedroom, leaving Damon alone in the living room, lost in thought. That night, Damon lay in bed tossing and turning. Lyral was right next to him. But there was an invisible wall between them, making him feel more alone than ever. He began to reflect on his actions. When Odelia fell ill, he had dropped everything to care for her. But what about Lyril? When had he ever truly cared for her? As these thoughts swirled in his mind, Damon was overcome with deep guilt. It suddenly dawned on him that Lyril had, without him realizing, become an irreplaceable part of his life. Her coldness unsettled him, and her distance caused him pain. But what use was this realization now? Lyril had completely given up on him. The next morning, when Damon woke up, Lyril was already up. She was watering the plants in the yard, looking in good spirits. "Breakfast is ready. Help yourself," Lyril said, but her tone was lighter than usual. Damon was slightly puzzled but went to the kitchen to serve himself. At breakfast, he noticed a subtle glow on Lyril's face, as if something good had happened. "You seem in a good mood today," he said cautiously. "Really?" Lyril looked up at him. "Maybe it's because of some good news." "What good news?" Damon asked, curious. Lyril put down her chopsticks and looked at him. "The college entrance exam is back. The first one will be held next spring." Damon froze. "How did you know?" "Wang's wife told me. Her husband works in a government department, so he's got the inside scoop." Lyril's eyes sparkled with excitement. "I'm going to take the college entrance exam." "The college entrance exam?" Damon asked, confused. "You're going to college?" "Of course," Lyril replied matter-of-factly. "I'm going to take the exam for a university in Beijing and major in something I love." Damon's heart sank. If Lyril passed the exam and went to a university in Beijing, that would mean she would leave here and leave him. "But you're a military wife. How can you?" "How can I not?" Lyril interrupted him. "The policy now encourages everyone to pursue education. There's no reason why a military wife can't go to college." Damon was left speechless. Lyril was right now. There were no restrictions, and he had no reason to stop her. "And what about me?" he asked, unable to hold back. "What about you?" Lyril countered. "I mean, if you get into university, then what are we doing?" Lyril asked calmly, her gaze steady. "Damon, do you think there's any point in trying to salvage our relationship now?" Damon met her cold stare, a wave of despair crashing over him. He suddenly realized that Lyril wasn't just focused on studying for the university entrance exams, she was trying to escape this failed marriage entirely. "Lyril, I know I've been wrong, but we still have a chance." "There's no chance left," Lyril shook her head. "Damon, some things are simply gone, and there's no getting them back." "I'll change." Damon grew anxious. "I won't see Odelia again. I'll treat you better." "It's too late." Lyril stood up to clear the dishes. "Damon, I've lost all expectations of you. Whether you change or not, it has nothing to do with me." With that, she turned and walked into the kitchen without a second glance. Damon sat motionless, a sense of panic welling up inside him. He suddenly understood that Lyril was serious. She truly meant to lead him, and it was all his doing. In the days that followed, Lyril threw herself into preparing for the college entrance exams. Apart from doing the necessary housework, she studied relentlessly English, math, physics, chemistry, Chinese. Nothing was left out of her revision. Damon watched her study with unwavering focus, his emotions a whirlwind. He wanted to stop her, but he couldn't find the right reason to. He wanted to win her back, but her indifference was like ice. "Lyril, are you really going to take the exams?" he asked again that evening, unable to hold back. "I've said it many times already," Lyril replied without looking up. "I'm going to Peking University. But Beijing is so far." "That's even better." Lyril finally looked up at him. "The farther away I am, the less I'll have to think about the unpleasant things that happened here." Her words were blunt, and they stabbed at Damon's heart. "Lyril, can we start over?" he asked cautiously. "Start over?" Lyril scoffed. "Damon, do you really think that's possible?" "Why not? We can forget the past." "I can't forget," Lyril interrupted. "I can't forget how you lied to me for your ex-girlfriend. I can't forget how you stayed out all night for her. I can't forget the look on your face when you asked me if I'd be worried if I were dying." Damon was left speechless, deeply shamed. Those things are in the past. In the past? Laurel stood up, her eyes flashing with cold light. Damon. If Sue Odelia comes back, if she needs your help again, will you go to her? Damon opened his mouth but found that he couldn't answer. See? You can't even answer. Laurel shook her head. That's your answer right there. Laurel. Don't say anything more. Laurel sat down again, picking up her book. I need to study. Don't disturb me. Damon stared at her resolute attitude, feeling an overwhelming sense of despair. He suddenly realized that Laurel was truly going to leave him and there was no going back. That night, Damon lay in bed, thinking about everything. He remembered Laurel's shy smile when they first got married. How she'd made him every meal with care. How her gentle hands had massaged his head when he was sick. Those beautiful memories made him realize just how good of a woman Laurel was. And yet, he had hurt her for the sake of an illusory past. For something that didn't even matter anymore. Now, he regretted it. But was there still time? The next day, Sue Odelia was discharged from the hospital. She called Damon, saying she wanted to meet him to thank him for looking after her. When Damon received the call, Laurel was sitting next to him. She heard Sue Odelia's voice and shot Damon a cold glance before returning to her book. I'm not in a position to go out right now, Damon said into the phone. Why? Is your wife stopping you? Sue Odelia's voice held a note of hurt. Damon glanced at Laurel. But she was still focused on her book. As though their conversation had no effect on her. It's not that. Damon. I'm about to leave the city. This might be our last chance to see each other. I just want to thank you in person. It won't take much time. Sue Odelia's voice grew more sorrowful. Damon hesitated. In the past, he would have gone to see Sue Odelia without question. But now, he looked at Laurel again. And she was staring at him with cold eyes. If you're going, then just go. Don't sit here hesitating. Laurel's voice was sharp. I've gotten used to it. Her words were biting. And Damon felt a sharp pang in his chest. I'm not going to see her. He said into the phone. Take care. And I wish you a safe journey. He ended the call. Sue Odelia clearly hadn't expected Damon to refuse. She lingered on the line for a long moment before hanging up. Laurel glanced at Damon without saying a word and went back to reading. I didn't go to see her, Damon said, trying to prove he was changing. I saw. Laurel didn't lift her head. Do you want a reward? Damon was at a loss for words. He suddenly realized that Laurel's mistrust of him had run deep. No single act could change it. In the following days, Sue Odelia called several times. But Damon rejected each call. He thought this would win back Laurel's heart. But her attitude remained cold. I've cut ties with Odelia, Damon finally said one night, unable to hold it in anymore. Oh, Laurel responded, still focused on her book. Aren't you happy? Damon asked. Why should I be happy? Laurel asked in return. Isn't that what you should have done? Damon couldn't find a retort. Laurel was right, it was what he should have done, was what he should have done. And it should have been done long ago. Then, can you forgive me? He asked tentatively. Laurel finally looked up at him. Her gaze still cold. Damon, I've told you before, some things. Once done, can't be undone. You can't just say sorry and make it go away. But I truly understand now. I was wrong. Does it matter that you understand? Laurel sneered. If understanding was enough, the world wouldn't have so many tragedies. Damon stared into her cold eyes. Despair flooding his chest. He suddenly realized that no matter what he did, Laurel would never forgive him. Then you really are going to leave by going to college? He asked one last time. Of course. Laurel's answer was firm. I want to see a bigger world. Not waste my youth in this small place. Damon's heart sank as he heard those words. He suddenly understood if Laurel really went to university, he would never be able to win her back. But now, what could he do? Time passed quickly, and the end of the year arrived. The exam dates were set for the following spring. Laurel's studies grew even more intense, and she spent nearly all her time revising. Damon watched her thin frame, torn between pity and helplessness. That evening, when Damon returned from the army, he found Laurel still studying. Her eyes were red and swollen. clearly from over-accretion. Lyral, you should rest, Damon said with concern. I still have one problem left, Lyral replied without looking up. Damon walked over and glanced at the problem, realizing it was a complex physics question. Do you want me to help you with it? He asked, testing the waters. Lyral finally raised her head and gave him a look. You know physics? I studied a bit in college, Damon replied. Lyral hesitated for a moment, then reluctantly passed the problem to him. Damon examined the problem carefully and began solving it. His thought process was clear, and he worked through the problem in detail. So that's how it works, Lyral said, studying his solution with a thoughtful expression. Is there anything else you don't understand? Damon asked. No, thank you, Lyral said, putting away the problem and preparing to go to bed. Lyral, Damon called after her. Is there something else? Lyral turned back to look at him. How's your health? You've lost quite a bit of weight recently, Damon said with concern. Lyral paused for a moment before returning to her usual cold demeanor. My health is none of your business. With that, she turned and walked into the bedroom. Damon watched her retreating figure, a complex mix of emotions swelling inside him. He realized that he was increasingly concerned about Lyral, growing more reluctant to see her go. But everything was too late. After the new year, preparations for the college entrance exam officially began. Lyral registered in the county and chose to take the arts track. Her goal was clear, the Department of Chinese at Peking University. Lyral, are you sure you want to apply to Peking University? Damon asked. The competition is fierce there. I'm confident, Lyral replied resolutely. Damon watched her with pride, but also with a growing pain in his heart, knowing that he was about to lose her. As the days counted down to the exam, Lyral's study schedule became more intense. She only slept 4 or 5 hours a night, spending the rest of her time reading and solving problems. Damon watched her struggle, feeling both heartbroken and helpless. He wanted to urge her to take care of her health, but Lyral always coldly rejected his concern. One night, Damon was jolted awake by a soft noise. He opened his eyes and found that Lyral was no longer in bed. He got up to search and found her collapsed by the table in the living room, still holding a pen in her hand. Lyral, Damon shouted in alarm, rushing over to pick her up. Her face was pale, and her forehead was burning with fever. She clearly had a high temperature. Without a second thought, Damon carried Lyral straight to the hospital. At the hospital, the doctor explained that Lyral had a high fever caused by exhaustion and malnutrition, and she needed to be hospitalized for observation. Damon sat by her bedside, watching her unconscious form with an overwhelming sense of fear. He suddenly realized how empty his life would be without her. Lyral, you have to get better, he whispered, holding her hand. I can't lose you. In her delirium, Lyral mumbled a few words. Damon leaned in to listen and caught her words. I want to go to college. I want to leave here. Hearing this, Damon's heart was pierced. Even in her unconscious state, Lyral still only thought of leaving him. 3 days later, Lyral finally woke up. She opened her eyes and saw Damon sleeping with his head on the bed, his face covered in stubble, clearly having stayed by her side for a long time. You're awake? Damon stirred at her movement and immediately sat up. How did I end up in the hospital? Lyral asked. You fainted and had a high fever, Damon said with concern. The doctor said you're malnourished and need to rest. Lyral paused for a moment before saying, I want to leave the hospital. The college entrance exam is coming up. I can't waste time. No. Damon immediately protested. You're still not well enough. You can't leave the hospital. I know my own body, Lyral replied coldly. You don't have to worry about me. I'm your husband. Of course. I have the right to worry, Damon said, his voice firm for the first time. Lyral looked at him, a flash of complex emotion crossing her eyes before quickly vanishing. Damon, how long have you been sitting here for me? She suddenly asked. 3 days, Damon answered truthfully. Lyral was silent for a long time before saying, Thank you. This was the first time in a long while that she had expressed gratitude, and it warmed Damon's heart. Lyral, can we? No, Lyral interrupted him. Damon, I appreciate you sitting here for 3 days. But it doesn't change anything. Damon's heart sank again. I still want to go to college. I still want to leave here. Lyral stared out the window. Her voice calm. This illness is just a small interruption. It won't change my decision. Damon looked at her determined profile. A deep sense of despair overwhelming him. He suddenly realized that no matter what he did, Lyral would never turn back. A week later, Lyral was discharged from the hospital. Her health hadn't fully recovered, but she insisted on going home to continue studying. The days leading up to the exam grew shorter. Although Lyral had lost some time due to her illness, her foundation was strong, and her grades remained excellent. Damon watched her bury herself in her books every day, and his pain grew with each passing day. He knew that once the exam was over, it would mark the time when they would part ways. Finally, having fulfilled Lyral, the day of the exam arrived. Lyral wore her best clothes, holding her exam admission ticket, ready to head to the examination hall. Lyral. Good luck, Damon said as he saw her off at the door. I believe you can do it. Lyral turned back and glanced at him, a complex emotion flickering in her eyes. Damon, if I really get in, will you wish me well? She suddenly asked. I will. Damon nodded, though his heart felt like it was being torn. But he spoke sincerely. I hope you get the life you want. Lyral looked at him with her honest gaze, an indescribable feeling stirring in her heart. Thank you, she whispered, then turned and walked away. Damon stood at the door, watching her figure disappear into the morning mist, his heart full of conflicting emotions. He knew this might be their last goodbye as a married couple. A month later, the college entrance exam results were released. Lyral did very well, and had enough points to be accepted by Peking University. On the day she received the acceptance letter, Lyral was unusually calm. She looked at the letter in her hands, a faint smile curving on her lips. Congratulations, Damon said, his voice rough. Thank you. Lyral put away the notice, then turned to Damon. I'm leaving for Beijing next month. Damon nodded, trying hard to remain calm. I know. Damon, let's get a divorce, Lyral suddenly said. Though he had known this day would come, hearing Lyral say it still felt like a thunderclap. Lyral, this is for the best for both of us. Her voice was calm. You can go after the person you truly love, and I can start a new life. Damon stared at her serene face, and an overwhelming wave of pain crashed into him. He suddenly realized he was really going to lose Lyral, forever. What if I tell you I love you? He said with difficulty. Lyral hesitated for a moment before shaking her head. It's too late. Damon. Love isn't something you say. It's something you do. I can start over. There's no starting over. Lyral interrupted him, her voice firm. Some mistakes, once made, can't be undone. Some wounds, once inflicted, can't be healed. Time doesn't rewind. And feelings don't return. Damon looked into her resolute eyes, and the last shred of hope inside him shattered. A month later, Lyral left the small town and went to Beijing for university. Before she left, she and Damon went to the Civil Affairs Bureau to finalize their divorce. Damon saw her off at the train station, watching as she disappeared into the crowd. His heart felt hollow. He suddenly remembered something Lyral had once said. There's no such thing as regret medicine. Yes, Katasoy, there was no such thing as regret medicine. If only he had cherished Lyral. If only he hadn't hurt her for Suadelia. If only he had realized Lyral's worth sooner. But there were no if only-s. Years later, Damon heard that Lyral was doing well in Beijing, successful in her career and happy in her family. As for him, he was still alone, holding on to memories he could never recover. He finally understood something. Some people, once missed, are missed for a lifetime. As soon as I walked out of the exam hall, the police took me into an interrogation room. They found cheating tools in my clothes. They also arrested the accomplice who helped me cheat at a nearby hotel. The accomplice pointed at me as the one who bought the answers the moment he saw me. He voluntarily confessed to the entire crime process and our financial transaction. The evidence was irrefutable. and news of it spread across the internet. In an instant, I went from being the media's darling, a genius student, to a criminal behind bars. My parents fought to clear my name, but they were met with no justice. Eventually, unable to endure the online abuse, they died in agony at home. Soon after, I received the tragic news of their death and suffered a heart attack. Until the very last moment of my life, I didn't understand. I hadn't done anything. Why did all the evidence point to me as the cheater? When I opened my eyes again, it was the night before the exam. Alara, why are you just standing there? Hurry up and get your ID out to check in. I heard my best friend Lilith's voice beside me. I suddenly shivered. I was in the lobby of a hotel, and the clock on the wall showed the date as June 6th. Lilith nudged me. Why are you still standing there? Your ID. The motion finally made me realize what had happened. I had been reborn. In my previous life. Because the exam venue was far from home and I was worried about traffic congestion on the day of the exam, I had stayed with Lilith at a hotel less than 100 meters from the exam hall the night before. On the last day of the exam, as soon as I walked out of the hall, I was immediately arrested for cheating. The person who provided the answers was hiding in the room I had checked into. Alara, why are you being so slow today? The receptionist is waiting. Lilith, anxious, reached into my bag for my ID. I grabbed her hand. I'm not staying. Lilith frowned, scolding me. Alara, how could you do this? Do you know how hard I worked to book this hotel? No. You have to stay. I looked at Lilith in confusion, not understanding. Usually, Hiduta sigh. She was gentle, even her voice soft and mellow. So why was she being so forceful today? I forced a smile. Lilith, you know how I'm picky about where I sleep. I might not be able to sleep at all in a hotel. And it'll affect my exam tomorrow. I've decided to go home to sleep. I'll just get up a bit earlier tomorrow. I'm really sorry. Lilith covered her mouth and laughed. I was just kidding. You really took me seriously? Then you better think it through. Rooms are really hard to book before the exam. If you cancel now and change your mind later, there might be no room left. I nodded and insisted on going home. Then you can take a cab back. I'm going to my room to study. I watched her enter the elevator and hailed a taxi. Driver, take me to the nearest internet CIFE. Everything in my previous life had happened too quickly. Like fireworks that exploded and then vanished into thin air. How did I end up with cheating tools? Where did the evidence provided by the accomplice come from? And who wanted to frame me? And why? All of these questions were shrouded in a fog in my mind. Maybe I would never know the truth in this life. But at least I could avoid this disaster. That meant not taking the exam. So I couldn't go home. I needed to find a place that was open 24 hours. Had surveillance. And could hide me. An internet CAF was the perfect place. The driver soon dropped me off at the internet CAF. I paid and reserved a computer for 2 days. After finding a seat, I started watching variety shows and dramas. When I got hungry, I ate the instant noodles provided by the CAF. And when I felt sleepy, I napped. But every time I closed my eyes, memories of my past life would resurface, waking me up in panic. This went on, day after day, until the third afternoon at 5 o'clock. I had just closed my eyes when a pop-up notification appeared on the screen. Exam names, cheating was just discovered at the exam hall in Nancy. The suspect has fled the scene. And the police are currently in hot pursuit. I had a bad premonition. Just as I was about to click on the notification, the screen suddenly went black. The internet CAF was filled with complaints. Manager. What happened? The computer screen is black. Sorry. Everyone. I think the power went out. I'll turn the circuit breaker back on right now. Please be patient. Not long after, the sound of police sirens echoed outside the internet CAF. Several police officers rushed in and surrounded me. They flashed their badges. Alara. You're running pretty fast. You went from the exam hall to the internet CIF in the blink of an eye. I asked. Confused. May I ask what you're looking for me for? The police officer snapped. Don't play dumb. You cheated on your exam. We're arresting you. For a moment, My mind went completely blank. I cheated? In my confusion, Lilith and my childhood friend Dylan rushed in. Lilith, breathless, spoke up for me. Alara would never cheat. You have to trust her character. Besides, she's already been accepted into a top university. Dylan pushed through the crowd and stood in front of me. Yes, officer. She has no reason to take that risk. Could it be some kind of misunderstanding? Some classmates who had followed them to watch the commotion sneered. Whether she cheated or not is up to you two to say? What do we need the police for? Exactly. You two must be in on it together. I suggest you all be arrested and interrogated together. Lilith grew anxious. Alara, you have to explain. I'm going crazy here. The surrounding noise made my head spin. When I didn't respond, Lilith's eyes shifted from firm to confused. Alara, you didn't really cheat, did you? Her voice was soft, but it was loud enough for everyone around us to hear. They began pointing and whispering. Oh my God. They're checking so thoroughly these days. And she still had the guts to cheat on the exam. Some people really have no fear of death. I think this girl is the top student from my school. I've seen her on the high score list. TSK. So it was all fake. She always acted so smug, worried that she'd expose herself during the exam. I guess that's why she resorted to cheating. I heard her parents are both top teachers at the school. Even the teacher's daughter is cheating? How can they live with themselves? They should just die. The insults in my ears made me shiver. But I hadn't participated in the exam. How could I have possibly cheated? My voice trembled slightly. Officers. I didn't even take the exam. How could I have cheated? The police officer laughed sarcastically. You didn't take the exam? You're really not going to cry until you see the coffin. Come with us to the station. I'll show you the evidence. A pair of cold shackles clamped around my wrists. I clung desperately to the chair, shouting, I really didn't take the college entrance exam. If you don't believe me, ask the people at the internet. CIF check the surveillance footage. Oh. Still trying to argue? Fine. I'll check right now and let you die with clarity. The police immediately questioned the onlookers. Can any of you testify that she's been here at the CAF since last night without leaving? I looked at them, full of hope, but they all shook their heads. Officer, we're here to play games. Who pays attention to who's sitting next to them? I just got here. How should I know when she arrived? I have no impression of her. Officer, don't make this hard for us. Testifying means going to the police station, right? If my parents find out I snuck out to play games, they'll skin me alive. I grew anxious. If they can't testify, there's still the surveillance footage. The CAF manager ran over with an apologetic face. Officer, I'm terribly sorry. Just now our CAF had a power surge and the device storing the footage burned out. All the surveillance data is lost. I stared at her in disbelief. No way. How could it break at such a time? I want to see it myself. She led me to the surveillance console. The words "disk damaged" stabbed at my eyes. Clutching at my last straw, I asked her. Sister, you were the one who registered me last night, do you remember me? She nodded, then shook her head. Sorry. I'm face blind. I really can't remember faces. It was as if I'd been plunged into an ice cave. My whole body trembled. The manager pointed at the little red flower pinned to my collar. Didn't you just rush in from outside? I can't remember faces. But I do remember that flower on your collar. It really stands out. I grew frantic. You're lying. I've been sitting here the whole time and never went anywhere. The police sneered. Alara, stop denying it. That glaring little red flower is hiding your cheating device. He snatched up a pair of scissors, snipped the flower off, and tore it open. Inside was indeed a small electronic gadget. My eyes flew wide, shock freezing me in place. In my previous life, they had found the exact same device hidden in my clothes. In that instant, it felt as though I'd been dragged back to that former life. This isn't mine. I cried, terrified. At the same time, Lilith shrieked. Alara. Isn't that? Dylan's face twisted with bitter disappointment. Alara. I can't believe you'd do something like this. Looking at their reactions, It felt as though all my strength drained away. So you two were at the exam hall as well? They both nodded. Darkness crept into my vision. All I could hear was Dylan's hollow, despairing voice. Alara. Your best option now is to confess and seek leniency. Do you understand? We'll take care of your parents every step of the way. So don't worry. When I came to, I was already in the interrogation room at the police station. The officers pulled up the exam hall surveillance footage. The screen showed, with crystal clarity, that on both days of the test I had rushed into the hall at the last minute. Once seated, I kept turning my head, even pressing my ear to the little red flower. Each time I did, my pen flew furiously across the page. Once, the invigilator stood beside me for several minutes. During that time I didn't write a single word. Only after the teacher left did I lean toward the flower again. It was hard not to suspect cheating from such a scene. The officer threw the device onto the table. Isn't this your tool, Alara? Tell the truth. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to stay calm. There's only one thing I need to state. I never once stepped into that exam hall today. As for your video why I'm in IT, I have no idea. I had to hold fast to that point. Even if they found the device in my clothes, it couldn't be considered my tool if I wasn't on site. The officer gave a short, cold laugh. Tight-lipped. Huh. Then look at this. He handed me two test reports, one for fingerprints on the exam paper, one for saliva on a water bottle. Both matched me 100%. I stared at the reports, trying to find some flaw. The door opened. Another officer entered, leading a frail-looking man. That's her. She's my buyer. Officer. I've confessed everything. Can I get a lighter sentence? I had never seen this man before. Never had any dealings with him. Before I could speak, the officer threw a stack of documents onto the table. Alara. All your accomplices have confessed. These are your chat logs and transaction records. Take a good look. My hands trembled as I flipped through them. They showed detailed WeChat conversations about the time, place, amount, and method of the operation. The last screenshot was of a bank transfer from a card under my name, transferring the agreed-upon sum before the exam. My breathing grew heavy. Witnesses. Physical evidence. The contraband itself. A seamless chain of proof. Even without my confession, they could convict me. I kept replaying everything in my mind but found no cracks. Once again, I'd fallen into a dead end. Across lifetimes. Who was it that wanted me nailed to the pillar of shame? Destroyed beyond redemption? Another knock at the door. It swung open. My parents' voices drifted through the gap. Officer. Please. Let us see Alara. Alara's been framed. Our daughter could never do such a thing. If you won't let us see her, we'll throw ourselves against the wall right here. The officer sighed. Alara. Come out for a moment. Shackled. I was led out by two officers. One on each side. Alara. Alara. Far away, Hadiza Filway. My parents were calling my name. I looked at my mother's disheveled hair and my father's bloodshot eyes. And a bitter ache rose in my chest. They had always taught that a teacher must keep a neat appearance. Always presentable. I had never seen them so undone. Their eyes bored into me. Desperate. Alara. Did you do it? I shook my head. Firm. No. 6 with a single sentence from me. They immediately dropped to their knees. Officer. There must be a mistake. My daughter could never cheat. Alara's mock exam scores were all above 700 throughout her senior year. And she's already been accepted into Tsinghua University. The college entrance exam is just a formality for her. She has no reason to hire a scammer to cheat. Behind my parents, Lilith and Dylan also pleaded on my behalf. Please. Officer. Investigate thoroughly. Don't ruin the future of a good student. The officers looked troubled. What you're saying may be true. But we rely on evidence. Don't we? A commotion broke out outside. And a group of people stormed into the police hall. Their faces filled with anger. Officer. We're the parents of senior high school students. We heard that someone from our city was caught cheating in the exam. And we've come here to demand that she be severely punished. This is outrageous. Cheating in the college entrance exam, how is that fair to the students who've studied hard for years? I demand that the parents be held accountable too. Arrest them all and sentence them to death. It only took a moment for the insults to escalate to targeting my parents. My parents' faces twisted in pain as they desperately defended me. Alara is not that kind of person. Please. Believe her. We beg you. Spare us your excuses. We only trust the police. Your whole family is guilty of cheating. What credibility do you have left? People like you shouldn't be teachers. You're ruining the students. I'll go to the Education Bureau and file a complaint. Such disgraceful parents must be exposed to the entire country so everyone can see them for what they are. They should be scorned to death. I could almost see the same scenes of my parents being attacked in my previous life. Their pain and helplessness. Suddenly, a glass bottle was thrown toward me. Scum. Cheater, Darafasalik, may you die a miserable death. My dad instinctively rushed forward to protect me. Taking the full force of the bottle on his head, the impact caused blood to pour from the wound. Only then did the police react. Rushing to maintain order. Calm down. Everyone. One officer said. Still trying to appease the irate crowd. We already have enough evidence. Rest assured, we'll have an answer for you soon. In my previous life, it was only a few days before the evidence was finalized, and shortly after, I was thrown into prison with news of my arrest broadcasted nationwide. My parents, unable to face the crushing online abuse, were too scared to leave the house. Eventually, they were killed by the mother of a girl who had committed suicide after failing the exam. She set them on fire in their own home. Upon hearing of my parents' tragic death, I died of a heart attack. Unable to breathe. Countless images of my past flashed through my mind. Suddenly, a small red flower appeared in my thoughts. Frozen in place. How could I have missed this detail? I shouted desperately. The evidence chain is flawed. I know who framed me. 7 At that moment, the entire hall seemed to freeze. All eyes were on me. One officer broke the silence. Who framed you? Confidently, I replied. The person who framed me is right here among you. I looked around the room. My gaze sharp, scrutinizing every single person present. Some looked away nervously, while others wore provocative expressions. Only my parents' faces were filled with worry. In my past life, I was arrested immediately after stepping out of the exam hall. The only time I saw them was during my trial. In just 1 month, their faces had become haggard, their bodies thin. They grasped my hands. Their eyes resolute. Alara. We know you're a good child. You'd never resort to such dirty tricks. Stay strong inside. We'll make sure justice is done for you. The trial was broadcast live for the whole nation to see. The moment my parents spoke, the live stream exploded. Countless people accused them of being heartless and unethical teachers. Despite the hard evidence, they remained unapologetic. Because of parents like them, a daughter like me was born, one who would trample on the fairness of hundreds of thousands of students. A larger wave of online abuse soon followed. It felt as though everyone had the right to slap them or step on them. They were forced into hiding and didn't dare leave the house. A few days later, a mother who had just lost her daughter in the exam jumped out in front of my house, carrying a bucket of gasoline. She set them on fire, burning them alive. In this life, I must clear my name and let my parents live on. I patted their hands and turned to the police. I can't say anything right now. It's too dangerous for me. A ripple of astonishment spread through the room. She's just trying to play tricks. Is there anywhere safer than the police station? Exactly. She's clearly stalling for time. If she had the evidence, she would have presented it by now. Officer, the parents of this cheater are right here. Just arrest the whole family and throw away the key. They don't deserve to be around kids anymore. Amid the noise, my mother's face turned pale, and she collapsed on the floor. My father glanced at me with concern, then lifted my mother and left the police station. I turned and walked toward the interrogation room. Behind me, someone shouted, "Cheating on the college entrance exam is unfair to the millions of students who worked hard. We cannot let this slide. I demand a harsh punishment for the cheater." The crowd quickly rallied, dozens of parents forming an alliance. ready to sign a petition. The interrogation room door slammed shut once again. 2 officers furrowed their brows as they watched me. Do you have something to say? I stood firm. The person in the video is not me. How can you prove that? I pointed at the small red flower on the monitor. This is proof I wasn't there. 8 The officers' eyes immediately lit up, clearly having pieced together the truth. Check the surveillance around the internet CIF. We need to find that red flower. There's more than just the red flower. There are other masterminds behind this. So, what do you want us to do? I was about to speak when a sudden pain shot through my abdomen. Beads of sweat, large as peas, trickled down my face. I gasped for air. Help me. The officers rushed to lift me out. Another officer stopped Dylan and Lilith, who were surrounded by the crowd. You're Alara's friends, right? She's in a lot of pain. And we don't have enough personnel here to help her. Could you please accompany me to the hospital? Dylan hesitated, stammering. Lilith nudged him. Sure. Officer. We'll go. Soon. Let out a low sigh. I was rushed to the hospital, where the doctor diagnosed me with intestinal colic. After taking medication, I would need to stay for observation. After all the commotion, it was already past midnight. In the hospital room, Lilith took my hand, asking, Alara, I believe 1,000% that you didn't cheat. You said earlier at the police station that you know who framed you. Do you know something now? I shook my head. Dylan patted my head. Alara, they say 3 heads are better than 1. If you tell us what you discovered, we'll help you figure it out together. I smiled. From the way you two are speaking, it sounds like you're certain I didn't cheat. Do you know something I don't? Lilith's face fell with grievance. We've been best friends for more than 10 years. Of course we trust your character. Exactly. With your abilities, top universities in the country would be at your feet. Why would you jeopardize your future? Why do you suspect us? Lilith's eyes welled up with tears. Alara, if I thought for a second that Dylan and I were involved, it would really break my heart. I closed my eyes and sighed. And haven't I felt the same? I once thought we would be lifelong friends. Lifelong lovers. But why is it you two who are trying to harm me? Dylan jumped up, furious. Alara, do you have no conscience? Since this all started, it's been me and Lilith defending you. When you were sick, we stayed by your side, not leaving you for a second. We've been nothing but good to you. And now you doubt us? I think what you're suffering from is not a heart disease, but hysteria. Alara, you need evidence. Without that, it's just slander. I didn't respond to him, but continued on my own. Someone pretending to be me checked into a hotel using my name. The fingerprints at the exam. The saliva on the water bottle. The hired gun. The transaction records. The cheating tools. You two may not be good at studying, but when it comes to crime, you're geniuses. Our argument caught the attention of some medical staff, and whispers began to spread outside. Isn't Alara's cheating in the exam already a done deal? There can't be a twist to this. Can there? Impossible. Her 2 friends have always treated her well. I think she's just upset and trying to drag them down with her. Sigh, hadn't fulfilled my sigh. What a cold world when you end up with friends like these. With the crowd's support, Lilith regained some composure. She crossed her arms, her expression defiant. What evidence do you have? I have plenty. I'll tell you all a story. The story begins half a month ago when my good friend Lilith told me that the exam center was too far from home. So she booked 2 rooms at a hotel nearby, so we could walk to the exam the next morning. 2 days ago, in the afternoon, we arrived at the hotel. While checking in, I suddenly decided not to stay, so I left without registering my ID. A few minutes later, I went to an internet CIF and rented a computer for 2 days. The crowd was in an uproar. Now that's absurd. Who would go to an internet CIF during the college entrance exams? Who would believe that? Yeah, Alara. Her good friends did all they could for her. But she doesn't even appreciate it. Now she's making up some ridiculous story and throwing them under the bus. I regret letting her stay in the hospital. I laughed. Because I've already been directly admitted to King BI. I was originally registered to experience the once-in-a-lifetime exam. But I had a bad premonition that day. So I decided not to take it. After all, whether I took the exam or not, the result would be the same. I'd still end up at King Bi. The room went silent. I continued. For the past 2 days, I've been in the internet CAF. While awake, I watched TV shows and variety programs. When tired, I slept. I never left the CAF. But curiously, at the hotel 2 kilometers away, someone checked in using my name. This person also attended for exams on my behalf over the next 2 days. Of course, this imposter wasn't idle either. She smuggled electronic devices into the exam hall, left behind the water bottles I drank from and the white paper I touched. And after she and her gang left the exam hall, they used a burner phone to report my cheating. Right, Dylan? The room erupted into a chorus of confusion. What does this guy have to do with it? I don't understand. She's telling some crazy story. Another her? Does she have a clone or something? Dylan was unflappable. Alara, your story is well crafted beginning, middle, and end, with plenty of drama. But where's the evidence? Anyone can make empty accusations. Lilith was furious. She slapped me hard across the face. Alara, I've been nothing but good to you. And now you've thrown dirt on me. As the sound of her slap faded, a police officer pushed through the crowd, raising his badge. We found the little red flower. Please. The 3 of you. Come with us to the police station. In the interrogation room, Dylan and Lilith were agitated. How dare you arrest us? Do you know who my father is? When I get out, I'll make sure you all regret this. The officer stood his ground. Don't be arrogant. First, take a look at the little red flower. The door opened, and a familiar figure stumbled inside. Both Dylan and Lilith gasped in unison. Clara? I sighed. Cousin. So it was you. Clara fell to her knees. Sister. I'm so sorry. But I was forced into this. But don't worry. Sister. I'll confess everything. I'll make sure you're cleared of all charges. With that, Clara stood up and pointed at Dylan and Lilith. It was them who threatened me into taking the exam for her. They gave me the blank sheets that Alara had touched and the water bottle she drank from. Clara. Dylan's gaze was murderous. I know you and Alara are close. And you want to clear her name. But accusing us without proof? You'll end up in prison for this. What will your parents think if they find out? Clara was trembling. Standing still. Unable to speak. Officer. Are you all helping Alara? Are you involved in something shady that we can't see? The 2 officers straightened their backs. Accusing the police. Huh? Fine. I'll let you see the evidence. The police released the surveillance footage from the 2 days of the exam. In the video, a person who closely resembled me, wearing a shirt with a little red flower on the collar, was taking the exam. Why are you staring? That's clearly Alara. I stepped in front of the screen. Lilith. Didn't you forget? Our matching outfits. The red flower on the collar is perfectly symmetrical. The police enlarged the footage. A pair of hands, covered with a thin plastic film, were clearly visible. Besides the fingerprints on the draft paper with Alara's information, all the exam papers are completely clean, with no fingerprints left. In other words, the real person taking the exam couldn't have left fingerprints. Clara and I were cousins. But we looked so alike, like our grandmother, that even strangers often mistook us for twins. 10 Especially when Clara, following my example, had also cut her hair into the same student style, and was wearing the same black framed glasses. Her face was covered, making her look even more like a copy of me. This is why everyone believed that the person in the video was undoubtedly Alara. Lilith chuckled. Then this only proves that Clara is trying to harm you. What does it have to do with me? Just because I own the same outfit. Does that make me an accomplice? There are plenty of people who could be out to get you. Clara's voice trembled as she spoke. Sister. I didn't mean to hurt you. These 2 scoundrels made me do it. They even got some thugs to assault me to force me into helping them. Tears flooded from my eyes. And I couldn't catch my breath. This was the one thing I couldn't understand. Clara and I had always been like sisters. So I couldn't fathom why she would side with Lilith to hurt me. They even filmed it and threatened me, saying if I didn't go and take the exam for you, they'd release the video to the public and ruin my reputation. You know what my dad is like if he finds out about this. He'll probably kill me. Sister. I really have no way out. The officers at the scene clenched their fists in anger. Lilith maintained a detached attitude, tapping her fingers on the table impatiently. Where's the evidence? Is this how you handle cases now? You think crying and acting pitiful can convict someone without proof? Should I cry and act pitiful to prove I'm innocent? I slammed my hand on the table. Of course. I have evidence. 11. The officer took out my phone and began playing the recordings inside. There were calls between Lilith, Dylan, Let, and the hired guns, threatening Clara. The voices echoed in the interrogation room. Just before the exam, they often borrowed my phone under the pretext of parental restrictions, chatting with the scammers and threatening my cousin. They would then delete the call logs and messages to ensure there was no trace of their crime. But they didn't realize I had unknowingly turned on the automatic call recording function. Their dirty deeds were all recorded. The interrogation rooms were opened again. We found the surveillance footage from the ATM. The timestamp was from half a month ago, with Dylan accompanying her. Lilith had transferred a total of 100 yuan in 3 separate transactions at the ATM, matching the amount discussed over the phone. The officer continued to present the evidence, speaking slowly but clearly. Next, we've repaired the internet CIFS surveillance footage. The second officer adjusted the video to show the early morning of June 7. The footage revealed Dylan sneaking into the internet CIF and stealing my ID and exam admission ticket while I was asleep. The video then cut to June 8 in the afternoon, showing Dylan returning the items to my backpack. This perfectly created the evidence chain that I wasn't absent from the exam room and hadn't missed the exam. And it's not over yet. The hired gun has confessed. He's pointing the finger at you two as the buyers. At this, Lilith and Dylan could no longer sit still. Their expressions shifted to panic. But it was short-lived. Lilith smirked. So what? Do you know who my father is? I can guarantee that not only will you not defeat me, but you've also shot yourselves in the foot. Now, while the public still doesn't know the truth, just keep pretending you've done nothing wrong. Otherwise, you'll never know how you're going to end up. The officer's previous sense of justice began to waver. My heart sank. Lilith's father had enough power in our city to cover this up. Moreover, the public had already firmly believed I was guilty of cheating. If the police released a result that everyone was happy with, the nation would celebrate. And some would even send congratulatory banners to the station. I looked up at the ceiling in despair. Had I done everything I could in this life, yet still not be able to save myself and my parents? The thought of them enduring the same pain from my past life twisted my heart. My despair seemed to satisfy Lilith. She laughed loudly. Alara, don't blame me for being ruthless. Blame yourself for being too perfect. My parents always talk about you, saying you're smart and well-behaved, that you'll be successful one day. While I'm the useless fool they don't even care to look at. I've been thinking for a long time about how to make you fall from grace and die in bitterness. I thought and finally came up with the idea. The best way to ruin you was to have you caught cheating on the college entrance exam, making you the target of nationwide scorn. That way, you'll never be mentioned in my parents' conversations again. They might even think I'm the daughter who, though stupid, doesn't embarrass them. Good thing I made a backup plan. Or my 3-year-long scheme would have been for nothing. Oh, and Clara. You betrayed me. You'll pay for it. Dylan laughed along. Looking back now, it was so much fun. So thrilling. Rage filled my eyes. I felt like if I had a knife in my hand, I would personally kill these 2 animals. Clara collapsed to the ground like a puddle of mud, her face filled with despair. Clap, clap, clap. The police clapped their hands in approval. Lilith, your parents were right. You're a fool. Just like they said. Truth be told, this case is no longer under the jurisdiction of the Southern City Police. It will now be taken over by the Special Investigation Team from Beijing. The speech you just gave will be strong evidence during sentencing. Clara's face, having fulfilled Lion's once full of despair, now shifted to a look of shock directed at Lilith and Dylan. The officer smiled proudly. Remember this, never try to challenge justice or the law. Because justice, though late, always arrives. 12 half an hour later. The special investigation team arrived. They immediately began a thorough investigation into the Southern City cheating scandal. All the evidence was laid out clearly, and the truth was soon made public. Public opinion shifted dramatically. I knew there was no way a genius like Alara would cheat. Some people just couldn't see the truth. Those who insulted Alara and her family should all be kneeling and apologizing. The truth is chilling. A best friend and a boyfriend were the masterminds behind it all. I have goosebumps. I demand a severe sentence for the two villains. Lilith and Dylan. Parents who had previously cursed my family lined up to apologize. I accepted their apologies with a smile, pretending to be gracious. But inside, I felt nothing. The invisible knives that had been thrust into our hearts couldn't be healed, even if they were removed. Half a month later, the court ruled. Lilith and Dylan were sentenced to 20 years in prison on multiple charges. The news sparked another round of online excitement. Everyone praised the verdict, as if they had won an invisible battle. Meanwhile, I was on my way to the hospital with Clara. Because of her, an innocent person had been dragged into this. I would stay by her side until she finally overcame the psychological scars. But how long would it take for that day to come?